The most common effect had by the COVID pandemic upon people like you and me was an emphasis on avoiding social contact, especially shopping for clothes. During the pandemic, many brick-and-mortar shops attempted to offer curbside fitting rooms for shoes and pickup for non-essential items. Some of these stores, due to concerns of safety, often refused returns. The convenience of online shopping quickly replaced traditional brick-and-mortar fashion retail. According to eConsultancy.com, Shein.com, a fashion dropshipping giant, increased from $10 billion to $21 billion in 2021 alone, and 54% of pandemic shoppers in the United Kingdom reported that they plan to continue their consumer trends picked up during the pandemic, suggesting an increasing reliance upon the convenience of online shopping. And this makes sense. Online shopping allows people to access a much wider variety of products, compare prices more efficiently, request custom items, check stock, ask questions, and pay quickly, all from the comfort of one's abode. The only remaining advantage of brick-and-mortar shopping is instantly getting the item one pays for. If you shop online, you may quickly realize that shipping, standard and return, like gasoline, is expensive. But many shoppers, due to increasing proliferation of online shopping, have gotten very wise to the online shopping industry, and this has had some very interesting changes in fashion. Let's take a look at how fashion has been changed by the COVID-19 pandemic. Clothing focused on utility, with the advent of working from home and living from home in ways that are entirely novel to humanity, has caused many individuals to reprioritize their life and implement routines for productivity at home. With this, we see the advent of gorpcore, techwear, lunarcore, all clothing that allegedly emphasizes utility over fashion and vanity. I say allegedly because techwear often is recognizable by its futuristic dystopian appearance, gracing the pages of Instagram and Reddit models. These enterprising fashion experts have curated amazing outfits, such as Antwon from This is Antwon, and I've posted a link in the discussion in case you are interested in learning more about techwear, as Antwon does an excellent job explaining. Video games, which were a major part of COVID-19 quarantine recreation, have strongly influenced these fashion experts in their outfit designs, as seen in the picture I've been showing during this section of this video. Yes, techwear is supposed to eschew fashion for practicality, in reflection of people's emphasis on living fuller lives with less materialism and more experiences and personal development. But in the eyes of the public, the ninja aesthetic, as it is called, has predominantly taken the front seat in people's imagination. Lunarcore also is a subsection similar to techwear, but takes emphasis on advances in space travel, such as Elon Musk's SpaceX controversially pushing the limits for human habitation of other planets, with some brands such as Volleybag going so far as to create their rendition of what kinds of clothing recreational space tourists might wear. It even includes a bag for space sickness built into the Mars jacket. Gorpcore is a style similar to techwear, but places emphasis on outdoor practicality instead of day-to-day living. This attitude comes from a greater appreciation of spending times in the outdoors and making time for adventures as a result of the tremendous isolation pressures experienced en masse. Gorpcore has been called hiking at home fashion, as it incorporates clothing traditionally associated with hiking, such as puffer jackets and other rugged elements. The practicality of these clothes is a roaring cry of humanity, as disenfranchised workers realize how much more efficient their lives could be if they worked on their terms. The meme, "This could have been an email," or "This could have been a Zoom meeting," often expresses the frustration felt by workers forced to work at home, realizing that so much of their daily routine at work was simply a time sink that pulled them away from what truly mattered to them. Conversely, being stuck at home has inspired a wholesome revival of family values and traditional living arrangements, or at least the idealization therefore, as brought up by a niche genre called cottagecore and also dark academia, which are two distinct genres, by the way. Cottagecore basically involves dressing in cozy, old-fashioned, traditional ways, and taking up hobbies that are seen as traditional and domestic, such as baking pies, knitting, sewing, and gardening. Frustrated workers who increasingly rely on technology, especially during the pandemic, have started to fantasize about nostalgic, peaceful nights with their family, cooking a meal at their own time, and spending time together enjoying it instead of rushed to-go orders and using delivery services, wolfed down quickly in order to get to sleep, to get to bed, to rise early and get to work in quite a hurry. The pandemic, for many people, has forced them to reprioritize what is important in their life, and even to fantasize about creature comforts that were once considered chores by our ancestors. Imagine that for most of history, people fished out of desperation for food, and in the 1990s, people fish recreationally. In 2021, people knitted, they sewed, they sewed? They baked pies. They deliberately created an entire fashion statement around such activities in veneration and reification of what they perceive to have been a simpler time. I have been posting pictures of cottagecore so that you know what I am referring to. Dark academia is similar in many ways to cottagecore in its aesthetics, but is often called Harry Potter fashion, and often mimics school uniforms and other academic modes of dress. This is possibly a reason due to quarantines forcing people to go to school from home using Zoom and attending online classes. As you can see, very many niche fashions have sprung out of the isolation the pandemic has caused. Of course, apocalypse-style fashion has also taken cues from mainstream video games and increasingly taken hold of people's imagination due to what is, in fact, a very real apocalypse. With that, we also see the advent of what is often problematically referred to as, I quote, homeless chic, unquote, or alternatively, it is clothing that imitates various professions and skill sets, often of laboring classes. Some brands such as Hemkus, I apologize if I am mispronouncing this, have even produced elaborate backstories surrounding their clothing items, their own lore. These clothes are referred to as I've referred to it, because they often appear to mimic stereotypical images of homeless individuals. Specifically, I have heard people referencing Zoolander's Der Licht parody of fashion. And it mimics stereotypical homeless individuals in reference to their seemingly disorganized, ragged, or rugged appearances, appearing as if the individual wearing them has been through some rough times. I apologize for the problematic language involved in discussing the subject. A possible explanation for the sudden increase in clothing that would possibly be frowned upon by our ancestors for an unkempt appearance, and I do hope you will forgive me for saying as such. I do appreciate this style, but it does seem to be deliberately unkempt and carefree or rugged. An explanation might be offered by Geoffrey Chaucer's Sir Topaz tale in The Canterbury Tales, which, to briefly summarize, is a knight challenging a giant to a duel for the love of a fair lady, but then, as he is telling his story, it is cut short and interrupted because the story is seen by other travelers who he is recanting this tale to as formulaic, cliched, in its overly saturated nature and goodness, in quotation marks. Basically, it is Chaucer's explanation for why so much of the media today and also back in that day is so often focused on controversy and scandal, because that makes a good juicy story, right? And so it is also similar for fashion. It is 2022. It is easy to make nice clothing at affordable prices that look good on most people. If you ask people what kind of clothing looks best on a man, and I have done this, people will most likely say jeans and a t-shirt, or a nice suit. Google images seem to confirm similar results. People, due to a lack of socialization and greater importance placed on social presence online, feel tremendous need to compete with one another. Because this is the state of humanity in our current time period. And thus resort to clothing that grabs attention by being eccentric and ribald, since clothing that looks good is readily available to be worn by anyone and everyone. This need to capture people's attention has driven the need for clothing that appears derelict, shall we say, in nature. A friend of mine critiqued some of these clothes by saying it would be difficult to make clothing that is uglier, even if one tried. And I must apologize for my friend, as I truly do admire these styles, personally. But I relate this to you, dear viewers, because I suspect that these clothes are in fact deliberately trying to challenge notions of beauty. I feel that they are deliberately trying to be less than objectively beautiful, and that is indeed part of its charm, in my opinion. It is difficult to speak on this matter without seeming condescending and disparaging, so I apologize if it comes across that way to my viewers who like these styles, and like me, I enjoy these styles as well, and to the brilliant designers pushing the envelope. I am a fan, I admire your works and your taste. Please forgive me if I've misspoken or misunderstood, and look forward to being corrected, if so, if you will, of course. Many of these clothes are exceptionally well made and fit very comfortably with a tremendous emphasis on practicality as well. This is part of the pandemic's focus on individual comfort over public perception, which paradoxically always stems from a concern for public perception. To summarize, it's easy in 2022 to make clothing that looks good for people. People are interested in being interesting, and that is where clothing that deviates from what simply focuses on looking good comes in. The practical fashions discussed previously often place an emphasis on oversized fashion. As consumers increasingly shop online, instead of dressing rooms, they must rely upon returns policies to exchange or acquire refunds. In the interest of being economically sound, businesses have it within their interests to reduce returns processed. According to The New Yorker, one of the most prominent reasons for customers returning an item is the fit of the garment, either too long or too short or too boxy, or maybe perhaps there is a surprising characteristic that challenged the previous perceptions the consumer had while making the purchase. As someone who returns clothing regularly, I can safely say that this is essentially just a catch-all excuse for wishing to return a product for which I had different expectations. One way online retailers can do this is by offering clothing that is deliberately oversized. By doing so, businesses can eliminate problems relating to fit by increasing the likelihood that clothing will look similar to the model on the customer, thereby increasing customer satisfaction. An interesting effect of COVID-19 was the massive influence of hustle culture, as it is called, that arose during the pandemic due to massive layoffs. According to FoxBusinessNews.com, unemployment rose to 8.5% for all workers during the pandemic and up to 21% in certain sectors such as hospitality and leisures. These horrific layoffs forced people's hands in finding new ways to make money. There is a website by the name of StockX that specializes in selling sneakers and other limited edition clothing. It is difficult for people to buy enough shares of stock responsibly from a broker in order to enter the market. According to Comsec.com, that number is $500 worth of stock shares, which is crippling to many people financially. Also, owning stocks disqualifies individuals from being eligible for food stamps in Washington state and many other states. Unless one has substantial amounts of money to buy vast shares of stock in hope of making a risky return, market speculation remains a tool of the wealthy. If one has such financial resources, these layoffs likely apply sparingly. Many people who invest in high fashion and other expensive luxury brands do so because they wish to buy retail and sell at astronomical resale prices, or simply to beat inflation. Such as the Kanye Yeezy foam runners, which originally retailed at the Adidas website for $75 but are now easily $600 or so, depending on many factors. Buying fashion has become an investment for many people and is treated similarly to stock. This is why the name StockX is interesting, since it denotes that many sneakerheads, as they are called, view the purchase of sneakers and other fashion products as a financial investment similar to owning stock. That is quite a way of looking at it. I have heard a friend discussing the Yeezy foam runners saying, "These are shoes people bought with the sole intention of reselling. I've never seen anyone actually wearing these." I wonder how true this claim is, but it speaks to the overall perception of fashion resale culture among unemployed hustlers, in quotation marks, in the hustle economy, in quotation marks, brought up by COVID-19. With the increasing prevalence of resale hobbyists or entrepreneurs, oversized clothing, as discussed before, also becomes important because it increases the viability of a garment for individual resale, since it is more likely to fit anyone. These wide fits also have the advantage of hiding the things in our body which society considers flaws, drawing attention to other elements, such as the prestige associated with the brands. Inversely, the layoffs have influenced fashion by encouraging people to buy inexpensive counterfeits or alternative products from overseas in an effort to attain a certain look while sparing their wallet. Counterfeit culture has blossomed and become a prominent threat for high fashion brands, at least on paper. Such brands in reality have seized this as an opportunity, creating what Antwon of This Is Antwon calls premium mediocre, in quotation marks, which is clothing that is simple, such as plain screen-printed t-shirts by very high fashion brands. I'd also like to say Antwon is responsible for coining the term premium mediocre. Everything else is my extrapolation. So if you have any disagreements, those disagreements are with me. I'd like to add to Antwon's excellent observations, in which he discusses that the motivations for what the alleged premium mediocre clothing, that such items of clothing encourage the perceived legitimacy of counterfeits, therefore encouraging counterfeiting and increasing brand recognition amongst people who have difficulty affording luxury fashion items. Fashion, as I have discussed, and if I have yet to, I will discuss, increasingly targets lower and lower income communities, such as children even, with the advent of video game-inspired clothing similar to tobacco companies, but also with the intent of encouraging resale hustle culture, as discussed earlier, I presume. As someone who has made pants, skirts, and other items of clothing by hand, I can tell you the most difficult part to get right in terms of fit is the crotch area of a garment. If a clothing company wishes to reduce online returns by offering oversized clothing, they also would do well from taking into account the most common complaint relating to clothing, which is the waist and crotch, of course. In the vein of oversized clothing, a specific example of the ways in which the pandemic has affected fashion is the increasing prevalence of what is called drop crotch pants, sometimes referred to as harem pants, as they are sometimes called. These pants feature very large rises or dropped crotches. By offering drop crotch pants, oftentimes with elasticated or adjustable waists, returns can theoretically be reduced. In a previous video, I discussed the deformalization of professional or formal clothing, which is linked in the discussion if you are interested. An example of this is Ukraine's president, I think his name is Zelensky's, olive drab t-shirts and other military-inspired casual wear, along with many other professional elites opting for more casual items of clothing as indications of their status. Online shopping has also been a very big influencer in terms of the platforms we used. As quarantined shoppers resort to increasing amounts of online research to find the items they enjoy, online retailers have taken into account the method by which consumers scry out their next purchase: the phone. According to Outerbox Design, 77% of online purchases are completed via phone. With the advent of smartphone shopping, online retailers need to be much more efficient with conveying the idea or concept of a garment or outfit quickly, because a smartphone is a small screen which makes it difficult to see in great detail without zooming in, and because consumers are able to quickly scroll through and navigate between many pieces. It is for this reason that designers have often opted for monochromatic color schemes or highly minimalist designs that convey the idea or notion of the design as quickly as possible from a very limited visual platform such as a phone, as opposed to a big comfortable desktop monitor or laptop one might use to watch things such as movies or play video games in which high resolutions and picture clarity are required. Minimalism, as the other themes discussed earlier, were very popular and are still very popular in high fashion brands as a result of the quarantine and the continued dependence upon online work and recreation. We are constantly overstimulated by bright flashing lights, seeking to get us to do something, grab our attention, buy something, complete something, think a certain way, feel a certain way. It truly is overly stimulating. Exasperated consumers welcome minimalist designs because they promise a glimpse of peace and serenity. Well, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate your thoughts. If you disagree with what I have said, please do leave it in the comments, and I will, if I have less than 100 comments, I will address them. Or at least read them, depending, if you're nice. If you are nice, I will definitely respond. If I'm still alive, God help me. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all. I love you. Goodbye.